And I think we are good here. All right. Beautiful, beautiful. So I'll go ahead and jump into this. My name is John Eli. And today our session is going to be called Relationship Habits, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. This is actually the second session in the Power of Choice series. And really quick, let me see, I'm gonna move this to read mode so it'd be easier to see. But I'm just gonna really quick just tell you a little bit about myself. We already did the icebreaker, but about me, I'm a mindset coach and I am a polyvagal theory, choice theory, attachment theory, positive psychology junkie. I absolutely love studying and sharing these different concepts. What we're going to be studying today and sharing today, talking about our whole sessions based on choice theory. But I utilize these different modalities to teach others and share with others and to empower people to live a life that they desire to have. And so a little bit about my background. I have a Master's of Science in Psychology. I have an MBA, a Bachelor's of Science in Family and Child Science, and also a certificate in Transformational Life Coaching. And what I do as a coach is I offer a program called BD Squared. That stands for Be, Dream, Believe, Do. What I do, what this program takes my clients through is really to help my clients understand who they truly are. A lot of times in life, we allow ourselves to be defined by a circumstance or an event that took place, and we end up making that our label for our life, and we find ourselves trapped. What I do is help people to re-encounter who they truly are. I help them to envision life beyond their current circumstance. I help them to identify the beliefs that are not serving them, and I teach them how to replace them with beliefs and practices that help them move forward to being the people that they were created to be. That's me in a nutshell. If you are interested in participating in one of my programs, I'll give you an opportunity to find some information about that as we move forward towards the end of our session. Now, just some general housekeeping, some general expectations. I'm going to ask for you to utilize the comment box. I'm going to ask for everybody to remain on mute unless I call on you to speak. I'm also going to ask at the end of the session, I will have a question and answer moment, so that way any questions that you would like to have answered more in depth, we'll be able to give an opportunity for that. I do ask for you to participate because that's what makes this session really work. And respect. I would like for this room to be free of judgment, of prejudice, politics, and religious rants. Basically, we're here to learn and to encourage one another, and just be respectful of other people's privacy as well. So I'm just going to check and see here really quick before we move forward. All right, just wanted to double check. We've got 8 people here in the room. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, so what I'm going to invite you to do as we get started, I'm going to invite you to think about a person that you've been in a struggle with recently. Think about someone that you have been in a struggle with. And perhaps you argue with this person constantly, or perhaps you're estranged from this person and you haven't spoken to this person in a long time. Maybe there's some unspoken tension. Maybe you've been looking for a way out of a relationship and you really just don't know how to do it. And I'm going to invite you, if you're courageous enough, and I know that there's some courageous people here today, I'm going to invite you just to share in the comment box how you tend to deal with relational conflict. And in sharing, and as you share your experience of how you usually deal with relational conflict, I'm going to ask you this question. Is it effective? Is the way that you've been dealing with relational conflict, has it been effective? What is your usual outcome with the way that you handle things? And if you could change anything about it, what would it be? And so I'm going to flip over and wait for some comments to come in the comment box. You don't mind just sharing your experience about how you usually process emotional and relational conflict. And has it been effective? What is your usual outcome? And if you could change anything about it, what would it be? I'll give you just a little moment to answer that question. All right. Thank you, Zach, for being the first brave one here. Step away for the issue for a moment, then you're direct about your feelings. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Anybody else care to share their experience, what they're doing, what is working, what isn't working, how effective is it? And so, Nick, I notice that with the people you're closest to, you tend to take it quite personally and shut down. Definitely, that's real. I appreciate you being vulnerable with that. And Zarina, you process conflict through shutting down, and it tends to be not effective because the issue is not resolved. Yeah, definitely. I hear that. That was me for such a long time as well. Definitely. And Manny, you worked on a great deal of removing expectations from all your personal relationships, and although you still struggle, you find allowing another person just to be themselves goes a long way for getting rid of the conflict. Absolutely. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for sharing your experiences. This is a great place to start moving forward in this session that we're having here. And so the whole purpose of this masterclass is to provide you with the framework that you need to build happy, healthy relationships with your friends, your family, romantic partners, and coworkers. That's the whole purpose. That's what we're going to do here today, is just to provide you with the framework. I don't expect anybody to leave this session being a master at creating relationship habits, but it's going to give us an understanding and a framework that will allow us to build healthier relationships. And really quick, I've been on an emotional intelligence kick because I just believe it's so important for us to develop our emotional intelligence, our EQ. Now, whenever it comes to IQ, growing up in school, as we move forward, in the world of education, we're taught a lot about IQ, and that's like our level of intelligence when it comes to understanding and learning and our cognitive ability. And that is something that is fixed. That's something that cannot be changed. Just our level of IQ is our level of IQ. However, our level of emotional intelligence is something that can always be developed. And it's based on 4 different components. Number 1, we have to develop self-awareness. In order to be emotionally intelligent, we have to really, truly understand ourselves. Whenever we understand ourselves, then we can manage ourselves. Whenever we understand ourselves and we're able to manage ourselves, then that allows us to become socially aware. We're able to understand where other people are coming from in life. And it also allows us to begin to manage our relationships and really hone into developing the relationships in life that we desire to have. Now, I'm bringing this up because today we're going to be working on the bottom half of this. Well, we're actually going to be incorporating all 4, but I want to point out that it all starts with developing a sense of self-awareness, being aware of how we show up whenever it comes to relationships, and then also being aware of how others are present. So we are going to be incorporating all 4 quadrants of emotional intelligence. All right. So what are we going to talk about today? Today we're going to give an overview of Dr. William Glasser and choice theory. I spoke very briefly about it last session. I'm going to talk about it again very briefly today. We are going to identify 7 disconnecting habits that destroy relationships. We're going to identify 7 connecting habits that strengthen relationships. And we're going to create a simple strategy to help you establish healthy relationships. All right. So let's start off with talking about Dr. William Glasser, one of my favorite theorists. He was an American psychiatrist who developed choice theory and also reality therapy. I strongly recommend his book, Choice Theory. It's been one of my favorites and something that I use to guide the way that I lead others in my coaching practice. And with that said, full disclosure, I have no affiliation with the Glasser Institute, and I'm not a licensed therapist. And also, I am still learning how to implement healthy relationship habits in my life. So by no means am I a master of any of these. I'm simply a mindset coach who implements the work of Dr. Glasser into my practice. And Dr. Glasser, he taught us that individuals only have the ability to control themselves, and their ability to control other people was limited. The concept of choice theory is to promote self-control so that individuals can increase their ability to make and act responsibly when it comes to choices. A lot of times we as human beings, the struggles that we have in life is because we are trying so hard to control others and to control circumstances around us, whenever reality is that much of what we can control, the majority of what we control, is only ourselves. And so Dr. William Glasser, he taught us that happiness is a choice. And he also taught us that having a happy relationship is also a choice. He basically taught us that our levels of happiness in relationships is dependent on our choice of relationship habits. So with that said, I'd like to share with you a little bit about my own personal journey with relationship habits. I know earlier I asked for you to share some of the experience that you've had with relationships and some of the struggles, the way that you have dealt with conflict in a relationship. In our previous session, our first session of The Power of Choice, I mentioned that I'm a recovering approval addict. And I used to base my approval, I used to base my personal value of myself on the values that others gave me. I depended on other people's love to love myself. And quite frankly, I wasn't loving myself very well. And the problem with being dependent on the love of others to love myself is that I was holding people hostage to my emotional needs. I was holding my family, my mother, my brother, my wife. I was holding friends hostage to meet my emotional needs. And whenever they weren't meeting my expectations, I would implode. And I want you to notice that I use the word implode and not explode. There's many people who explode under stress, and whenever the going gets tough, you're going to see them have outbursts. You're going to see them, it could be verbal, it could be emotional, an expression of emotion, it could be something physical that takes place. However, I'm not one of those people. What ends up happening with me whenever I emotionally implode is that I withdraw and I isolate. And what ended up happening is that I would emotionally separate myself from the people that I had believed had let me down. And this was completely a narrative that I had created. And in my mind, what I do is I justify it by telling myself that these people had done me wrong and that they deserved to be mistreated. So I'd blame, I'd complain, and I'd criticize without ever taking responsibility for my own happiness. And so I did this for years until one day, like, I completely collapsed. And I found myself in a complete mess. I found myself I had dug myself a hole that I was having a difficult time digging myself out of. I was separated from my wife. I was miserable, and I was stuck in a mess that I wouldn't wish on my own worst enemy. And so my choice to take responsibility for my place in life is what has led to me being here today. So that's John's story in a nutshell. And so let me move forward with choice theory. Choice theory teaches us that your important relationships are crucial to your happiness. Each and every one of us, we're going to have relationships in our lives, be it with a friend, a family member, a romantic partner, a coworker, a community leader, etc. And it's our relationships with these people that add value to our lives. They aren't what make us completely, but they add to our life experience. They make having healthy relationships makes the life journey much more pleasurable, and it increases our level of happiness. However, something just to get off the table right away is that any attempt to control someone else will always put that relationship at risk. Anytime that you try to control someone, it's going to just be risky. You're going to put that relationship at risk. And it's just something that we have to understand. The only thing that we can control is ourselves and our own behavior. And really quick, what I am going to invite you to do is I'm going to invite you to think of a time that you attempted to exert control over a friend, a family member, or a coworker, or a romantic partner. I left that out there. But what did you do? And why did you do it? And what was the outcome? And if you're courageous enough, and I know there's some courageous people here today, I'm going to encourage you to share that in the comment box. Think of a time that you attempted to exert control over a friend, a family member, a romantic partner, or a coworker. What did you do? Why did you do it? And what was the outcome? And I'll give you a minute or so to share your answers in the comment box. Anybody care to be courageous? Think of a time that you attempted to exert control over a friend, a family member, romantic partner, or a coworker. What did you do? Why did you do it? And what was the outcome? Everybody being shy today? Well, if so, just hold to that. Awesome. You don't tend to be the type to try and control other people. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Then Manny, you're pretty much a tyrant with your children as they're growing up, and you use intimidation and fear to try to get them to do what you wanted. And this worked, but not very well. I think a lot of parents run to that. I know that we've had some pretty in-depth conversations about that, Manny, and definitely I appreciate you being vulnerable with that. So let's move forward. Let me get this rolling here really quick. So problems always occur when you attempt to force people to do things that you want instead of supporting what they want. This will always be an issue. People are always looking for support and not someone to exert control over themselves. Every time that you try to control another person, it's going to weaken that relationship that you have with them. So with that said, I'm going to ask another question. Think about a time that someone tried to control you. How did it make you feel? And how did you respond to that person? Think about a time that someone tried to control you. How did it make you feel? And how did you respond to that person? And if you're feeling courageous enough, please include your comment, your response in the comment box. I'll give you a minute or so to answer that. Yeah. So you feel like your drill sergeant might actually kill you. Oh, yeah. I hear a lot about that happening in the military. Yeah. A controlling and manipulative spouse, it is going to create stonewalling in a relationship. That's just a given. Zach, thank you for sharing that. Part of my experience in my life is I was a pastor for 10 years, and the church board that I was serving under, a lot of times they would try to manipulate me to do different things, and maybe out of a good intention. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but instead of instilling appreciation in my heart for the position, it caused a lot of resentment within me, because I felt as an adult I had to ask for simple permission to do things like attending a parade on a day that there was an event at the church. So definitely caused a lot of resentment in my life. And thank you for sharing. I appreciate your vulnerability with that. And so with this said, I want to introduce you to 7 disconnecting habits that, if not exposed, uprooted, and replaced, will destroy any relationship that you have with a friend, a family member, a romantic partner, or a coworker. These 7 disconnecting habits, and I want to just point out that this is a basic list. This isn't a list of all disconnecting habits, but these ones are the start of a list of habits that can really impact a relationship in a negative manner. And they're complaining, blaming, criticizing, nagging, punishing, threatening, and bribing. These habits lead to a breakdown of relationships. And being disconnected can lead to many of the problems that we as human beings face in other areas of our life. Whenever we have support, whenever we have connections with others, it's a lot easier to navigate through life. Whenever we are feeling disconnected, especially from the people that we love and admire the most, it's gonna cause stress in other areas of our life. So here they are: complaining, blaming, criticizing, nagging, punishing, threatening, and bribing. So my question for you is, which out of these 7, if any, do you tend to practice most often in any given relationship? And also, why do you think you tend to run to this habit? Which one of these 7 disconnecting habits do you tend to practice most often in any given relationship? And why do you think you tend to run to this habit? If you could please put your response in the comment box. Yeah, for me, blaming and criticizing was huge for me. So thank you, Zach, for being brave enough, to share that, being courageous. For me, I used to criticize and blame a lot, punishing. Going back to what Manny said earlier about kids, I'm a stepfather of 3 children, and I would use threatening, taking away rights and things to try to get people to conform, to get my stepchildren to conform to my expectations of them. And it really caused some damage and some hurt in my relationship with them. I've really had to own that. Yeah. So thank you guys for sharing and for being vulnerable with that. So problems begin to occur when you attempt to get important people to do things that you want instead of supporting them to do what they want. In effect, what you're doing is you're chipping away at the foundation of those relationships without even realizing it. Think about it. What are you really trying to accomplish whenever you complain about someone? What you're really trying to do is you're really trying to get them to change, right? Or how about whenever you blame or criticize someone for something that they've done? When you complain, criticize, or you blame someone, you're assuming that you know what needs to be done and you're trying to get others to do it. And oftentimes you'll find people that they already know, and they assume well, they know what you want, but their choice to keep on doing what they are doing is in complete rebellion because they don't agree with you, and ultimately their freedom and their ability to choose is super important to them. So I want to share with you just two simple strategies if you find yourself, if you're doing these things, if you're complaining, blaming, criticizing, nagging, punishing, threatening, or bribing, and you find yourself disconnected from the people that you love, from the people that you admire, the people that you want to be close to, I'm going to encourage you to implement two different strategies. Number one, you can begin to look at things a little bit differently by changing the story and by admitting that this is something that you want. If you want it, and if you want it, perhaps you should take responsibility for making what you desire to happen. Another way to approach the situation is to ask the other person how important this is for him, and then work out the details together. And this might sound difficult. It might sound maybe a little bit petty, or might even seem like it's something that not even it's even a waste of time. But it's much easier to do this, to change a story or to ask for insight and work together with someone, than to try to control someone that doesn't want to be controlled. And before you start like allowing a lot of guilt to settle in, I'm going to tell you it's perfectly normal to want to change another person's behavior, especially whenever you see someone doing something that is, hurtful to themselves or hurtful to others. However, anytime you try to control someone, it's going to come with a price. In order to have a healthy relationship with someone, it's very important to, instead of trying to control them, to support, encourage, accept, trust, respect, and to listen to the other person instead. Just as happiness is a choice, a happy relationship is also a choice. So with that said, I want to introduce you to 7 connecting habits that will help you strengthen your relationships that you have with others. And these 7 connecting habits are supporting, encouraging, listening, accepting, trusting, respecting, and negotiating differences. Supporting, encouraging, listening, accepting, trusting, respecting, and negotiating differences. So I have a question for you. Which of these habits, when used towards you, causes you to draw closer to the person that you're in relationship with? Which of these 7 habits causes you to draw closer to those you are in relationship to whenever they're demonstrated towards you? If you're feeling courageous enough, please share that in the comment box. I like how Manny quickly put all of the above. But isn't it true? Isn't it true that whenever people are respectful towards us, when people are supporting, encouraging, they're listening, respecting, and they're not forcing us, but they'd rather negotiate differences, doesn't it make like the world of difference? I think that these are so healing. Thank you, Michael, for also saying, you know, for accepting and respecting. So we know that these 7 habits are really what will strengthen our relationship with others. So supporting and encouraging, it's easy to do whenever other people are doing the things that you want them to do. What do you think would happen if you support a child, for example, with what your child wanted to do? And of course, you wouldn't want to support them with anything that would be harmful for themselves. But let's say that your dream is for your son or your daughter to become a basketball player, but your child wants to be a rock star. And as a result, most of your arguments are centered around your son or daughter spending much too time with their rock band buddies. You find yourself criticizing, complaining, and blaming. How do you think this is going to affect your relationship with your son or daughter? Now, how do you think it would affect your relationship if you started to support their musical interests, and if perhaps you're maybe upset with the amount of time that they're spending and neglecting family get-togethers, or just simply not being present at home? Maybe you negotiated differences instead, and maybe found a middle ground instead of the criticizing, blaming, or complaining. How would your relationship be different? Now, why don't we try to reframe this scenario with a friend who maybe picks up a new hobby that you're not interested in, or maybe a coworker who gets involved with a work committee that you're not particularly interested in, a romantic partner that has started a health plan that isn't aligned with yours. You like to eat a whole different set of food, and now all of a sudden your romantic partner is on a diet that kind of crashes on your style of eating. How would it be if you chose to support this person instead of criticizing them? So when you support and you encourage someone to do things you don't particularly care for, paradoxically, it will help your relationship grow stronger. Now, I'm going to invite you to do something really quick. I'm going to invite you to participate in an exercise called My Favorite Person. This could be someone. I'm going to invite you to think of someone that has made an impact on your life. Your favorite person. Maybe it was a favorite teacher, a favorite coach. Maybe it's a favorite family member or an adult that you had around you, a mentor as a child. Maybe it's your spouse. Maybe it's a romantic partner, a friend. But basically, what I would like to invite you to do is to think about someone that you absolutely admire and that you are 100% appreciative that this person is in your life. And if it helps you, you're welcome to close your eyes while you do this. But as you think about your favorite person, I want you to think about how they treated you and how you treated that person. And whenever you were with this person, what did you do? How did you behave around this person? What did you think? What were your feelings? How did they talk to you? How did they talk to others around you? Maybe it was in a classroom, maybe it was a club. Maybe it was around other family members, maybe it was in a community setting, maybe it was in a church. Think about what their expectations were of you. What were their expectations for you? And what were their expectations for maybe the entire class, the entire group of people, the workforce, the team? And think about how they would share these expectations. And whenever they shared their expectations, what did you expect of yourself? What did you expect of yourself as you showed up in class or in the community, on the team, or in the world? Did you behave differently whenever you were around this person? Now I'm going to ask you a question. What if you were to interact with an important person in your life the way that your favorite person did with you? How could you treat that important person in your life better? How can you change your thinking about them and change the way that you talk to them? How would you communicate your expectations of the relationship? And how can you change your behavior to realize those expectations? So I know this was a little bit lengthy of an exercise, but I'm going to ask for you, what came up for you as you did that exercise? What thoughts came to your mind? What did you learn about yourself and maybe the way that you interact with others or interact with the important people in your life? Is there something that you could possibly be doing to encourage others and to strengthen your relationship? If you're courageous enough, I'm going to invite you just to share what came to mind as you went through this exercise. And I'll give you a brief minute to go ahead and post. I'm laughing over here at seeing Manny write about his wife and supporting her cheat meals more than his. Did anybody have anything come up, like a realization of something that your favorite person did that perhaps you hadn't thought about, that maybe you'd like to implement? It's awesome. Manny, your favorite people have always been people who accept you just the way you are. Yeah. And Heather, having a friend that accepted you in spite of the differences that you had, that's amazing. Michael, talking about your grandma and how she wanted you to do your best and to be happy, and there was no other expectations than that. That's beautiful. Zach. Zarina, I keep on seeing the Z and I keep on thinking it was Zach that was typing on that. Why does Zach only have one letter there and all of a sudden he has two? But yeah, I've always heard you speaking very highly about your grandma whenever we spent time together, Zarina. So that just beautiful that you would approach that. And I think that there's a common theme with people just having that expectation, having that ability to show up in a relationship without having the expectation to have to change to please that person. Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Nick. And so now we're going to do some work together. And let me pull this up really quick. Let's talk about the work, all right? So we come here, we learn, but it's also important that we learn how to implement this in our life moving forward. And at the start of the session, I invite you to think about a person that you're in a relationship struggle with currently. And I'm going to invite you to think about that person one more time. I'm going to invite you to think about the struggle that you've been having. And for a minute, I'm going to invite you to forget about the things that they've been doing, because you don't have control over what they do. You only have control over what you do. You have control over your choices. And what I'm going to invite you to do is I'm going to invite you to review the list of disconnecting habits. I'm going to pull this up really quick. And my mouse is giving me a hard time. So take a look at the list of disconnecting habits. And I'm going to encourage you to identify one or more habits that you have been demonstrating in your relationship with this person. Be completely honest. I'm going to encourage you to identify one or more habits that you've been demonstrating in your relationship with this person. And whenever you have a free moment, I'm going to have you write the following down. If you have a pen and paper, this would be perfect. But I'm going to encourage you to write this. I've been demonstrating the habit of fill in the blank when and fill in the blank. So just come clean with yourself on how you've been showing up in the relationship. I've been demonstrating the habit of, what is it? Criticizing? Is it blaming? What is it? What are you bringing to the table that is causing you friction and causing disconnection in your relationship? And once you've come clear with your habit of disconnection, what I'm going to encourage you to do is I'm going to challenge you to make a list of everything that it has been costing you. And perhaps you can use this as a way to list it. The habit of whatever habit you've been displaying has been costing you, and fill in the blank. For example, the habit of blaming is costing me happiness. It's costing me closeness with my spouse. It's costing me the ability to be able to smile in my own home. Maybe you're so stressed out that it's affecting your health. So the habit of criticizing others is costing you your own health, both emotional and physical health. I'm going to invite you just to sit with that for a minute. Sit with that discomfort, just knowing what your bad habits and relationships have been costing you. And the reason why I'm going to encourage you to sit with that is because sometimes you have to sit with the suck in order to get the motivation to move forward. You have to allow yourself to really truly experience how uncomfortable it can be before you're like, heck no, I don't want to be here anymore. And if anybody is feeling courageous enough, I'm going to invite you to share what you came up with in the comment box. Manny's giving me a hard time because I'm giving him homework. Anybody care to share what habit they've been displaying in the relationship that they're in struggle with, and perhaps what it's causing you? Yeah, Heather, thank you for being vulnerable about that. You know, the habit of bribing is costing you peace. The habit of stonewalling is costing you effective communication to build your relationships. Yeah. Yeah, the habit of punishing is costing you happiness. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for your vulnerability with that. I know that that's not easy. Yeah. You know what, that I want to be, well, I want to just say thank you, Michael, for bringing that up, because a lot of times we don't realize that these relationship habits are also in effect in the way that we relate to ourselves. So self-criticizing is going to cost you confidence. So you just took this to a whole different level, Michael. Thank you. And Manny, criticizing and blaming, it's costing you happiness. Yeah. Mr. Wilson, the habit of shutting down is costing you openness and happiness. Absolutely. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And so what I'm going to invite you to do right now, I'm going to pull back up the slides here. I'm going to have you take a look at the connecting habits. We started off with talking about the disconnecting habits in relationships, which are complaining, blaming, criticizing, nagging, punishing, threatening, and bribing. But now let's sit for a minute and take a look at the 7 connecting habits. And what I'm going to invite you to do is I'm going to invite you to reframe your disconnection. As you view the connecting habits, I'm going to invite you to identify a connecting habit that you might be willing to replace your disconnecting habit with. So think about it. Which one of these habits, which one of these 7 habits are you willing to replace your disconnecting habit with? And I'm going to invite you to fill in the following blank. Today, I choose to replace the disconnecting habit of, what is it? Criticizing, blaming, bribing, punishing, threatening, with the connecting habit of, what is it? Encouraging, supporting in your relationship with whoever this person is that we're talking about right now. Go ahead and take the time. If you need to write that down really quick, just do that. Today, I choose to replace the disconnecting of habit of, fill in the blank, with the connecting habit of, there you go. And what we're going to do is we're going to define how this choice is going to show up in your relationship. And you're going to fill in this blank now. I choose to do this by whatever you choose to do, when, and fill in the blank. Let's say you chose encouraging, and you have a wife that is part of a book reading club that you have no interest in, and it's taking away some time that you would like to spend with her. You know, I choose to do this by encouraging my wife and asking her about the book she's reading when she starts to talk about it. Perhaps you've totally been uninterested, not listening to her, and you've been running in the other direction. Really make a choice of how you are going to choose to show up in your relationship moving forward. And so next, you're going to need to develop some motivation to actually implement this. And just like how I had you sit in the suck of disconnection and the discomfort of being like, man, this disconnecting habit is costing me something, I'm going to encourage you to sit in the presence of possibility. And I'm going to encourage you to think of all the possibilities that may come with your new choice. I'm going to invite you to fill in this blank. The connecting habit of whichever one you chose creates the opportunity for fill in the blank. You know, I'm going to mention Zach talked a little bit about stonewalling and how that affected communication. Something simple could be like the connecting habit of listening creates the opportunity for connection, for intimacy, for love, for happiness. Think of all the things that your new connecting habit can provide for you in the way that the disconnecting habit has been stealing and robbing you of so much. All right. So how are you all feeling? Would someone care to share what came up for them as we did this exercise? Oh, beautiful. Michael, thank you. Of self-acceptance and relationship with yourself. Man, Michael, thank you. That is so deep. I appreciate that. Stonewalling with listening and respecting. Yeah, it creates the opportunity for deeper understanding and connection. Absolutely, absolutely. Absolutely. I had an interesting situation yesterday evening. I had a friend of mine that I hadn't spoke to for a long time. She went off on a rant on my on my page. The people who know me know that I'm very passionate about the Black Lives Matter movement, and one of my friends is having some challenges navigating that. And right away, my way of being was to criticize and to blame, but I chose to take a different approach. And I invited her just to have a conversation and to listen to her. And it was interesting how that conversation led to her realizing where she was at in life and letting go a lot of self-judgment for the life that she's been living for so long. She was feeling very guilty about a lot of things and had no way to express it. We ended up having a wonderful conversation. I believe she's going to be shedding beautiful light into the world. But if I had chosen automatically to just continue to blame her and cause her pain, maybe make fun of her or be negative towards her on social media, it may have caused a lot of damage. And I'm really grateful that this is a friend that I've had for 28 years. I definitely don't want to lose a friendship with that person. So I'm grateful for those opportunities. All right. Well, I appreciate you being vulnerable with this. And here's where it gets really good, all right? In a few minutes, this masterclass is going to be over, and you're going to have the opportunity to implement what you learned here today. So on a scale from 1 to 10, how committed are you to doing the work? Care to put that in the comment box? A scale from 1 to 10. I love it, Heather. 15. Love it, overachiever. There. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Appreciate what you're sharing here. Awesome, awesome. This lets me know that this session was not in vain. Thank you, thank you. So I'm just going to recap really quick what we talked about. We talked about Dr. William Glasser and choice theory. We talked about disconnecting habits. We labeled 7 of them. And we finally talked about connecting habits. And finally, I presented you with a strategy to help you bridge the gap between disconnection and connection. And now your work is to go out and do it. And so what's next? I would like to invite you next month, August 9th, I'm going to be hosting another masterclass on mind traps and how to get unstuck. And I'm going to be hosting these master classes on a monthly basis. Would love to have you participate in them. Feel free to invite others along in the journey. I would love to have other people join us. So feel free to let other people be part of this, and I appreciate you being part of it. Before I jump in to our question and answer session, I just want to remind anybody, if anybody is interested in scheduling the discovery call with me and finding out more about the BD Squared program that I offer, I am leaving a link right there in the comment box. You're more than welcome to click on that and to schedule a discovery session with me. But meanwhile, I'd just like to open up the floor if somebody would like to unmute themselves and just share what it was what's your greatest takeaway from this session today? What's the biggest thing that you're going to be taking moving forward?
So I think that as much work as I try and do in myself and my relationship and my wife and stuff, it's like, obviously it's a work in progress, but I just realized that for the most part, I accept her as she is. We have a great relationship, but there's still like, I still have like these little things that I wish she would do differently. Like specifically spending money. And it's like, I'm like, it's not a big deal. It's not like I don't get mad. We don't get in fights, but it's like I make these small little, joking comments, and it just made me realize, like, okay, it is actually kind of bothering me. And I just realized that, and it's like, okay, I need to take a step back and just, really assess the situation and say, okay, are we actually going to starve to death? Are we going to, lose our whatever? And it's just help me remember that it's not a big deal, basically.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thanks, Manny. Anybody else care to share a takeaway?
Me, I'll share a little bit. I learned just, it just kind of reminded me to be more present in my relationship, but also aware of the habits that I have. And I think I mentioned a lot was the blaming thing, and just, taking responsibility and, starting there with, my actions on what I'm doing in the relationship, so that way we can continue to work towards our issues. So it just kind of helped me to see where there needs to be work. So work needs to be done, is what I meant to say.
Yeah.
So thank you, John.
Awesome. And just so you know, like, part of becoming emotionally intelligent is that first component of self-awareness. We can never improve on something that we are unaware that we need improvement on. So this whole session is not to point out everybody's weaknesses, but rather just to empower you by saying, hey, here's an area of improvement. Let's build on that. Anybody else? Or does anybody have a question?
Hey, this is Michael. I just wanted to share that my takeaways was to be more mindful and aware of basically like self-talk and self-perception as relates to my relationship with myself. I'm not in a relationship with anyone romantically, but I would like to. And so I understand it starts with myself first. So if I correct my self-talk, that will help me to be more positive with whoever I choose to be with whenever we have issues. And also going into the situation more confident about myself and my strength. And like I said, that's going to help strengthen any other relationship that I have with anybody else. So that's my biggest takeaway. Thank you for having me as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Michael. And I just want to point out with what Michael said, because it goes back to emotional intelligence starts with self-awareness. Whenever you're aware of your relationship with yourself and how that's manifesting, if it's healthy or unhealthy, you want to go into a relationship whenever you're at a place of where you're healthy. You're not emotionally or physically going to be a hindrance to the other person. So with that, there's just so much opportunity to apply what we learned here today to the way that we relate to ourselves. And thank you so much for pointing that out, Michael. I really appreciate that. Beautiful. Anybody else have a question or comment? And if not, I know I went over an hour. I did not intend on holding you all hostage for that long, but I do appreciate you being in attendance and being a part of this. Like I said, you're invited, and I'll be sending out invitations for next month's masterclass, which will be on mind traps. But until then, you all have a great rest of your afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me, okay? Be blessed.